Look, we spend our entire lives trying to get the thoughts out of our heads and into the minds of other people. But why is it so incredibly difficult to be truly understood? Well, today we're diving into this explainer on the communion protocol to figure out exactly how meaning travels from one person to another.
Take a deeply human quote like this one from actress Hayden Panettiere about pain and second chances. When someone shares a profound lived experience like this, how does that meaning actually transfer to you? How do you receive her truth without having lived her exact life?
It poses the ultimate problem of communion. Think about it. If something true is to become common between two people, how does it pass from one to the other without completely eliminating what makes them two separate individuals? If we have to literally become identical to understand each other, then, well, true connection is impossible, right?
Section 1. The communication problem.
You know, a lot of people subconsciously think that perfect communication just means taking your internal state and copy-pasting it directly into someone else's brain. But true communication actually requires us to remain distinct, separate individuals. Overriding someone's mind isn't understanding, it's just control. To truly share meaning, we absolutely have to preserve the boundary between us.
Section 2. Signals versus meaning.
Now, this brings up a crucial distinction between Claude Shannon's math of signal transmission and Warren Weaver's problem of meaning. See, Shannon's technical problem was just about getting a signal from point A to point B without any noise. Simple enough. But Weaver pointed out a massive catch. Even if that signal arrives flawlessly, we still face a semantic problem. Did the receiver actually reconstruct the meaning that the sender intended?
Think about it like this. Imagine getting a text from your dad that just says, "Put the pizza in the oven at 400. Okay, the telecommunications network did its job perfectly. The signal arrived. But what does 400 actually mean here? Are we talking 400 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius, 400 minutes, or literally 400 separate pizzas? A perfectly transmitted signal can still turn into a semantic disaster if you don't share the same context. You could end up with world-class telecommunications and a really terrible dinner.
Section 3. The receiver's history. Let's use a treasure map as an analogy. Mistaking the map for the actual island is a massive error. A map is just a representation, right? If you try to literally swim on the blue ink, you've completely misunderstood the assignment. And more importantly, your ability to access that map depends entirely on you, the receiver. If there's a symbol of a duck wearing a crown and you have no idea that it actually means dangerous cliff, well, a perfectly printed map isn't going to save you.
Which brings us to a really crucial concept, your history state. Our past experiences literally change the architecture of what we are capable of comprehending today. You never start from zero. Every word you've learned, every promise broken, they stack up. A new message doesn't just enter an empty void, it enters your highly specific history state, and that dictates exactly how you decode it. Think about it like of a video game. Player A and Player B both walk into room 12. Looking at the screen, they're in the exact same physical space, but Player A has spent hundreds of hours in the game collecting keys and passwords, while Player B just started and only has, say, a wooden spoon. They're in the same room, sure, but because their histories are completely different, they have totally different possibilities. Even when two people hear the exact same sentence, their different histories mean they're going to reconstruct completely different meanings.
Section 4. The power of no.
Imagine you build a robot that's programmed to just agree with literally everything you say. Am I right? Yes. Was that a good idea? Yes. If you're forcing an agreement, it only demonstrates control. It doesn't show actual understanding. If the receiver isn't independent enough to disagree with you or misunderstand you, then their agreement carries zero informational value. They have to be capable of getting it wrong for their getting it right to mean anything at all.
This builds a brilliant framework where saying, "I need more information," is actually sometimes the smartest response you can give. Yes means genuine understanding. No means genuine disagreement. And hey, that's incredibly valuable data. But other is kind of the unsung hero here. It's the receiver saying, "Look, I refuse to randomly guess yes or no because you haven't given me enough context." It protects us from manufacturing false certainty.
Section 5. Mismatch is a map.
Say you're following a recipe and you accidentally dump in a cup of salt instead of flour. You haven't invented a bold new salty dessert, you've just made a terrible mistake. But this baking disaster analogy perfectly shows how a mismatch exposes what was missing from the original instructions. The mismatch reveals a hidden assumption. Maybe the recipe assumed your jars were labeled, or that you just knew the difference by sight. The error is basically a beacon pointing directly to the missing information. There's this beautiful phrase from the source text: error can become provenance without becoming truth. We're not pretending the salty cake is suddenly correct, but if we preserve the history of that mistake, if we actually remember why it happened, it helps the next person avoid the exact same trap. The error leaves a trail, a provenance that becomes a map for future learners. Your misunderstanding today can become the exact piece of context someone else desperately needs tomorrow.
So how do we actually upgrade that history state we talked about? Well, it happens in a loop. First, reception. Second, mismatch. You inevitably misunderstand. Third, instead of ignoring it, you actually pay attention to the gap. Fourth, a correction is provided. And finally, you reach a state of greater accessibility. Your relational missteps literally pave the way to clearer future access. It's an ongoing cycle.
Section 6. Achieving True Communion.
So, the ultimate goal of sharing meaning isn't to overwrite someone else's brain. It definitely doesn't erase their history, and it absolutely doesn't demand robotic compliance. True communication is all about sharing meaning across preserved differences. And most importantly, successful communication doesn't just produce a perfect clone of the sender. It empowers the receiver with all of their unique history to take that truth, understand it in their own distinct way, and eventually become a giver to someone else. Here is the absolute core takeaway for you. No severance, no collapse, relation. If we are completely severed, communication is impossible. On the flip side, if we collapse into each other and lose our identities, the receiver just disappears. The real magic happens right there in the middle. Relation. We stay distinct, yet we somehow manage to share something profoundly real across the gap.
So I want to leave you with a thought to wrap up this explainer. The very next time you find yourself completely misunderstanding someone or they misunderstand you, what are you going to do? Are you going to treat it as a frustrating failure, throw your hands up and walk away, or will you recognize that the mismatch is actually a map? It's an open invitation to uncover a missing piece of truth, to upgrade your history state, and to build a much deeper, more authentic connection. The choice is entirely up to you.